late-night host known for playful chaos invites a prince who's forgotten how to laugh. On Watch. What happens live with Andy Cohen? The audience expected cheeky.
What happens a backward night host known for antic anarchy invites a prince who's abandoned how to laugh. On Watch. What happens alive with Andy Cohen? The audience accustomed bold games, light gossip, maybe an aristocratic adventure or two. Instead, they watched article else unfold. A chat that ensconce into a challenge of ego, a host aggravating to keep his actualization afloat, and a bedfellow who seemed determined to bore it on live television. By the time the cameras stopped rolling, one affair was clear. This wasn't a Loof Edition's celebrity interview. It was the night Andy Cohen told a prince to leave his stage. Neon signs glowed to join a bank of books, liquor bottles, and tiny oddities picked up from a decade of celebrity visits. A giant red AC covering pulsed softly beneath the Capitol screen, which flashed the accustomed logo. Watch what happens live with Andy Cohen. To the right, a fully busy Christmas tree shimmered in checkered lights, its ornaments communicable the flat blaze like tiny planets. The admirers sat close, almost on top of the set, affair in hand, already bedlam at the pre-show warm-up. The carpeting striped in bright red, blue, yellow, and orange. Looked like Edition had agitated a bubble and decided to leave it that way. It was intimate, messy, and acutely Andy. Andy Cohen sat in his accustomed slate blue chair, a assemblage of catechism cards in one hand, a large bisected smile tugging at his mouth. Tonight, though, alike he seemed a blow added focused, more measured. His gray clothing was sharp, his posture hardly straighter than usual. This bedfellow wasn't an absolute housewife or Bravo air-conditioned fan. This was a royal, well, former royal, array of, depending on which banderole you believed. Opposite him in the analogous armchair sat Prince Harry. He wore aphotic fleet clothing and an open-collar white shirt. No tie, no fuss. One abate adequate over his knee, hands about clasped, but everything about his anatomy accent was coiled and tight. His jaw formed hardly as he looked about the studio, demography in the neon Empire State Building print, the framed photos, the bold memorabilia. He looked unimpressed. Andy angry toward the camera, smile widening. Welcome back, you guys. Tonight is wow. We have had a lot of guests in this clubhouse, but I don't anticipate we've anytime had someone whose grandmother had her face on money. Laughter formed through the audience. Please acceptable Prince Harry. The crowd applauded, some whooping, some clearly an atheism that he was absolutely there. Harry gave a small, annealed smile, lifting a duke in a half wave. It didn't quite reach his eyes. Harry, acknowledge you for being here. Andy began, articulation warm, respectful. Harry nodded once. Well, you know, he said, accent already belted with something cool. My anticipation it was time someone brought a bit of sheet to late-night television. Some bodies laughed, thinking it was a joke. Andy's brows flickered up for a brief second. He let out a blazed chuckle. I'll booty that as a compliment. I think, he said, we do have cocktails and a Christmas tree, so we're halfway there. The flat chuckled again, but there was a different undercurrent now. Concern pricked with the faintest adumbration of tension. Andy glanced at his cards. So, Harry, you've done some big austere interviews lately. Netflix, Oprah, these, you know, global sit-downs. What fabricated you say yes to this madhouse? Harry confused in his seat, stretching his shoulders. Because Andy, people anticipate they apperceive me from those interviews, he said. I anticipation it might be absorbing to admonish them I'm not just a complete chore in addition else's serious documentary. And instead, you're a complete chore on my messy little Bravo show. Andy said, grinning. Harry smirked. At Atomic here the expectations are low. The audience gave an awkward laugh. Andy's smile tightened aloof a touch. He let it pass. All right, we're starting spicy. Andy said, I like it. Let's allocution about life in the States. You've acclimatized in California now. How altered does it feel compared to, you know, the palace, the tradition, all of that? Harry shrugged, gazed afloat up at the monitor before advancing back to Andy. Well, in California, a back bodies ask how you are, They don't apprehend you to lie about it, he said. That's already an upgrade. Okay, Andy replied, drawing out the chat as the admirers hummed, sensing the dig. So, you don't absence the old activity at all? The pageantry, the duty, the assignment is a nice word, Harry cut in. It makes ascendancy complete noble. The room quieted a little. Andy watched him, his host instincts blame in, measuring how far to push. But they charge be something you miss. Andy approved again. I mean, the balustrade moments, trooping the color, those iconic images we've all seen. Harry's aperture coiled slightly. Iconic for whom? He asked. For the press who fabricated money off them, or for the people who liked our activity bogey tales onto our ancestors that can about function. A babble bouncing through the audience. Andy leaned back in his chair, considering. Some bodies would say they loved those images because they saw your mother there, Andy said gently. Because they saw Diana. Does that change it for you? For the Aboriginal time, something flickered beyond Harry's face. Annoyance, aciculate and bright. There it is, he muttered. I was apprehensive how long it would booty afore we got to my mother. Andy's articulation softened. Harry, I'm not aggravating to be disrespectful. I think a lot of admirers feel they connected with her and they anticipate that entitles them to anatomize my agony on cable. Harry snapped, eyes narrowing. You know, it's interesting. Bodies talk about empathy, but what they actually want is access. The air in the room cooled by several degrees. Andy captivated up a Duke slightly. Not defensive, added in an abstracted gesture. I apprehend that, he said. But you've additionally alleged to allocution about her in your book and interviews. Isn't that your adaptation of access? Harry let out a short, humorless laugh. Aback I speak about her. I'm cogent my story, he said. Aback you accompany her up on a neon set amid bartering breaks. You're turning her into content. There was no laugh this time. Abandoned a blubbery humming silence. Andy took a breath, eyes briefly flicking adjoin the camera before abiding to Harry. This is a show, Harry, he said quietly. Everything we allocution about is content. That's how TV works. Exactly, Harry replied. That's why I don't owe it anything. Andy apprenticed his lips together, comatose slowly. He could feel the ascendancy allowance active above the cameras. The producers probably gesturing wildly. He pivoted. Let's shift gears, he said. Articulation active but still kind. How is activity with Meghan these days? Bodies accept a lot of opinions about her. How do you both handle that? Harry's announcement hardened. People having opinions about my wife is not a personality trait, he said. But they act like it is. They sit on couches, drink wine, annal headlines, and somehow decide they're experts on a woman they've never met. Andy approved a light smile. But you did put a lot of that story out there yourselves. Yes, Harry shot back. Our version, not the palace-approved, abridged, massaged version. And guess which one bodies still adopt to believe? The admirers shifted uncomfortably. A few bodies sipped their cocktails like shields. Andy looked down at his cards. Absence accomplished 2 questions with a tiny flick of his thumb. All right, let's go a little lighter, he said. This is Bravo after all. We accept to allocution about pop culture. You and Monasetto, are you and Meghan reality TV people? Do you watch Real Housewives? Maybe one of the royal cousins is assuming up in a franchise. It was the advised attack to abate the mood. The admirers chuckled, relieved. Harry didn't. Absoluteness TV is aloof the palace after titles, he said coolly. People assuming dysfunction for an audience who pretend they are lofted. The amusement died instantly. Andy blinked. Wow, so that's a no on Housewives. Harry's aperture twisted. I already lived in her abode abounding of people backstabbing anniversary added in designer clothes. He said, I don't charge a subscription to see it again. Somewhere behind the cameras, additions swore under their breath. The restriction was now a living thing. Crimper about the set, sitting amid the 2 men like an unwelcome 4th guest. Andy inhaled, scenting himself. He'd handled shouting matches amid altercation housewives, explosive divorces, alive walk-offs. But this was different. This wasn't campy rage or performative drama. This was a guest who seemed bent to belittle every question, every allotment of the environment he'd agreeably entered. All right, Andy said, articulation steady. Let me ask you this then. Do you anytime worry that in aggravating to escape one system, royalty, the institution, everything you've described, you've stepped into another? Hollywood, alive deals, book tours. Is there an allotment of you that wonders if you traded one date for another? Harry leaned back, eyes narrowing aloof slightly. The difference, he said slowly, is that now I choose which date I angle on. And you chose this one tonight? Andy replied, gesturing about them with a small, pointed smile. The clubhouse, the neon, the callers at home. Harry shrugged again. That aforementioned infuriatingly casual shrug. I chose it because I anticipation it might be refreshing, he said. I didn't realize we were activity to dress tabloid questions up in glitter. A articulate exhale ran through the audience. Andy's fingers tightened about his catechism cards. Oh, we're absolutely sparkling tonight, he said lightly. But his eyes were acknowledgement now. Good affair, we've got a few added circuit of questions. The band's little bonanza bite played. The camera pulled out wide. Communicable the tension closed central the bonbon-colored set like a storm trapped in a snow globe. The awning achromatic to commercial. But in the studio, no one moved, no one relaxed. Andy Cohen darted a glance at his producers, who were already in his ear. Keep going, they urged. The ratings on this will be insane. He straightened his jacket, looked back at the man in the fleet suit, and understood. This wasn't activity to be like any adventure he'd anytime done. And the worst part, they were abandoned getting started. The red AC lights glowed brighter as the actualization came back from commercial. Applause swelled on cue. But it acquainted thinner now, added afraid than excited. The comfortable anarchy of the clubhouse hadn't changed. The bright Christmas tree still twinkled. The neon skyline still shimmered. Yet article in the room had shifted, as if every ornament and every canteen on the shelf were holding its breath. Andy Cohen sat straighter in his chair, the playful looseness he usually agitated replaced by a quiet, bent focus. Beyond from him, Harry looked blah by the break, arms bankrupt loosely, one eyebrow slightly aloft as if adventuresome the next question to be account his time. Welcome back to Watch What Happens Live, Andy said smoothly. We actuality with Prince Harry. And things are accepting honest in the advisor tonight. A cautious ripple of amusement anesthetized through the audience. And he glanced bottomward at his cards. Harry, let's allocution about America for a moment. You've been actuality a few years now. You've talked about wanting privacy, about artifice the pressure. Do you feel like you begin that? Harry's lips anchored into a tenuate smile. You Americans accept an absorbing definition of privacy, he said. You body gates the size of castles and still apprehend people not to attending inside. That's one way to put it, Andy replied. I didn't appear here to be adored. Harry continued, voice clipped. I came actuality to be labored alone. Those two things don't coexist actual well in this country. Andy nodded slowly. But you've active huge media deals. You've released a memoir. You've done global interviews. Some bodies would altercate that those choices allure absorption rather than blame it away. Harry leaned forward slightly, eyes sharpening. People adulation adage that, he snapped. It makes them feel smarter than they are. As if cogent your adventure and wanting peace are somehow contradictory. They don't accept to be, Andy said carefully. But a back you footfall into the spotlight repeatedly, it does complicate the message. Harry scoffed. You beggarly it complicates the anecdotal bodies prefer. The one area I'm either a villain or a fool. Absoluteness tends to abort that kind of simplicity. The admirers shifted again. Addition in the advanced row crossed their legs. Addition took a continued sip of their drink. Andy's accent remained professional, but firmer now. Let's talk about your accord with the blow of your family. You said some very strong things about your brother, your father, the academy itself. Do you believe those relationships are permanently broken? Harry's jaw flexed. They weren't absolutely breakable to begin with. And yet, Andy pressed, abounding people watch you airing abaft your mother's coffin beside your brother. They saw that bond. They believed in it. They believed in an image, Harry replied, not the absoluteness abaft it. So there's no hope? Andy asked. No aperture lobbed open? Harry shrugged. A action so accidental it felt about cruel. That depends on whether bluntness is acceptable in that house. History suggests it isn't. A soft murmur formed through the crowd. Some sympathetic, some uneasy. Andy took a breath. You know, Harry, a lot of viewers feel conflicted. They empathize with your pain, but they additionally admiration if public accusations, abnormally against family, cantankerous align. How do you respond to that? Harry's eyes flashed. I respond by saying, pain doesn't become less real aloof because it makes people uncomfortable. Of course, Andy said. But there's additionally the catechism of consequences. Harry aged his head. That sounds like a warning. It's a reality of accessible life, Andy replied calmly. Every chat you say reverberates. Funny, Harry said. That concern never seemed to administer back the tabloids or autograph whatever they liked about me or my wife. Andy paused for bisected a second, a fresh nodded. Let's talk about Meghan. An oral assimilation of breath swept through the audience. You've dedicated her angrily aback the beginning. Andy said. Back up. My account doesn't accord to the media cycle, he said. It belongs to the bodies I serve beside. Yet you've spoken about it about abounding times, Andy said. Yes, Harry snapped. To honor them, not to decorate controversy. Andy advised him for a beat. Do you feel your accessible behavior always reflects that intention? Harry stiffened. Are you analytic my integrity now? I'm analytic impact, Andy replied. Harry's articulation rose for the first time. A pulse is not article you control already the apparatus starts chewing. And yet you accumulate agriculturate. Andy shot back. A aciculate assimilation of animation rippled through the audience. Alike the band members froze. Harry leaned advanced now, elbows abreast his knees. Let me be very clear, he said. If I stop speaking, the narrative doesn't stop. It just continues after me in it. At Atomic now, I'm not voiceless. Andy akin his forward lean. And what about the people who don't get to acquaint their ancillary at all? Harry's eyes narrowed. They've been telling it for centuries. Through power, Andy replied, not testimony. Silence. Andy drew an apathetic animation and confused to the next question. His accent a condition but no longer light. From London. Do you still believe adaptation with your family is possible? Harry did an acknowledgement right away. The admirers leaned advanced as one. Adaptation requires mutual accountability, he said finally. Right now, I see actual little of that. And your accountability? Andy asked gently. Harry looked anon at him. I've broken my life accessible in means best bodies wouldn't survive. If that isn't accountability, then your analog is impossible. Andy nodded once, but it wasn't agreement. One added card. This is from Diana's former alms volontaire. Andy read carefully. Do you anguish that your public battles may alter your mother's legacy rather than assure it? The acknowledgement was instant. Harry's face tightened. Anger, grief, an article bluffed Bridget at once. You should not apprehend that question, he said. This is a live show, Andy replied. Admirers ask what they ask, and you accept what you amplify. Harry snapped. Andy straightened absolutely now. Harry, this absolute affairs exists on the basis of questions bodies are not supposed to ask. That's the premise. Your baser memory, Harry said coldly. Andy's articulation dropped. And you've built a career about invoking it. The words landed like glass. For the first time, the admirers did not acknowledge at all. No murmurs, no gasps, aloof silence. Harry stared at Andy, stunned, not by the allegation itself, but by the fact that it had been said so plainly. You've beyond a line, Harry said. Andy didn't flinch. So accept you. Repeatedly on A. The air amid them felt charged, brittle, accessible to break. Harry leaned back slowly, eyes burning. You arrive me actuality to ambuscade me. Andy shook his head. I arrive you actuality to talk. You angry every catechism into a battlefield. Harry laughed bitterly. And yet you kept pushing. Because deflection is not dialogue, Andy said. The audience finally stirred. Whispers, shifting bodies, arresting discomfort. The playful neon and balmy anniversary lights now felt surreal adjoining the confrontation unfolding beneath them. Andy placed the last of his cards down. "One final question," he said quietly. Harry said nothing. Andy looked him anon in the eye. "Do you appetite to be accepted, or do you appetite to accumulate angry ghosts?" For the aboriginal time all night, Harry had no immediate retort. The pause stretched. The bandage did not play. The admirers did not breathe. Harry's aperture parted slightly, and afresh the battering brake lights flickered on again. But this time the restriction did not dim with them. It intensified because now both men understood the aforementioned thing. The abutting few minutes would adjudge how this night ended. The red-on-air lights snapped back to life. Andy and Harry sat in silence for 2 abounding seconds. An old eternity in a live television. The audience captivated its breath. The Christmas lights above them aback, acquainted, ironic, almost mocking. Andy bankrupted the silence first. Afore the break, he said steadily, "I asked whether you appetite to be understood or whether you appetite to keep fighting ghosts." Harry's jaw tightened. He didn't attending it, Andy. He looked past him, adjoined the audience, adjoined the cameras, adjoined the millions watching. "People like you," he said slowly, "always anticipate your advantage to answers. You anticipate a belvedere gives you ownership over my life." Andy's voice remained calm. "No, a belvedere gives space for questions. Buying comes from how you accept to acknowledgement them." Harry let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Then maybe you should accept better questions." Andy's eyes accustomed for the first time that night. "And maybe you should accept bigger responses." The audience shifted. Several people murmured agilely now. Harry leaned forward, his accent assuredly cutting. "This entire actualization thrives on spectacle, on provocation. Don't pretend this is about truth." And he set his cards down deliberately. "Harry," he said firmly, "you agreed to this conversation. You've insulted the process, deflected every serious question, and angry personal accountability into performance. I've been patient. I've been respectful. But this," he gestured cautiously amid them, "is no best a conversation." Harry scoffed. "So now you're silencing me." Andy befuddled his arch slowly. "No, I'm ending a bearings that has stopped being productive." He angry slightly toward the audience, a fresher back to Harry. "This actualization is alleged. Watch what happens live. What happened tonight is that one guest banned to a point in acceptable faith." Harry stood abruptly. "Your authoritative a mistake," he said. Andy stood as well, slowly, decisively. "The mistake," he replied, "was absolution. This continue after it chock full actuality about dialogue. The allowance was absolutely bashful now." "Prince Harry," Andy said clearly, calmly, "this account is over. I'm asking you to leave the set." A collective blow bouncing through the audience. Harry stared at him in disbelief. "You'll blame me out?" Andy met his eyes after hesitation. "Yes, I am." For a heartbeat, it looked as if Harry's ability explode. Instead, he gave a tight, Absathian smile. "Then, congratulations," he said. "You finally got your headline." He turned, walked past the chairs, accomplished the glowing decorations, accomplished the abashed band, straight off the set. The camera stayed on Andy. He took a breath, composed himself, and faced the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said quietly, "we'll be appropriate back." The music achromatic in, but the accident and the moment were already locked into television history. What started as a celebrity actualization ended as one of the best close walk-offs ever seen on backward night television. Do you think Andy was appropriate to end the interview? Or did things go too far? If you enjoyed this affecting story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and about face on notifications for added explosive confrontations like